I was at a marriage conference, and my wife and I were at a break, and a lady walks up to me, and she says, "Here, this is for you." And she took a ring and put it in my hand. And the very ring that her husband had thrown at her at the marriage conference saying, "I'm done."
His wedding ring?
His wedding ring. She says, "You can use this as an illustration sometime." And she gave me the ring.
Oh, what did you do?
Well, she was distressed. She was obviously in a mess, you know. She'd come to a conference to get it fixed, to get encouraged, and she gets her ring thrown at her. And so I said, "Well, hang on for a second." I talked to her for a bit, encouraged her to go into this session because it was about communication, which they obviously weren't doing very good. And I said to her, I said, "You know what? I'm going to put that ring, I'm going to put it right on my finger until you and your husband are back together."
What made you even think
I have
of
no
something
idea.
like that?
I just felt that I needed to stand with this lady and walk with her through this pain. And so it was interesting because I put this ring on and I just said, "Okay, you go in and sit down there and I'll try to find your husband." Well, good luck. I don't even looks like, who is this guy? And it was so interesting how it all happened. So I remember walking out of the men's washroom and I looked up. I got 2 rings on my finger. I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. Some guy threw his ring at his wife. And it was interesting because I see this guy kind of walking towards me looking lost and stupid. Like, I mean, he didn't know where he was, right? Yeah. And yet he'd thrown the ring at the wife. Matter of fact, the story is the night before they had such a fight that he kicked in the TV and he took the door off the fridge.
You have got to be
in the hotel room. At the hotel room, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And so they're in a mess, eh? And the love is not going well. The love is lost. I talked to him for a moment. I encouraged them to say, "Hey, you know what? Take some time." And I got him, it's the wildest thing, I got him to go and sit down beside his wife in the session. And you can see them just leaning like this away from each other. Right? You know, like, it's really crazy the way they're doing it. But it was all about saying, you know what, we got to walk with people through the tough stuff.
Oh, I mean, we are talking, there are people with some deep hurts, and they're feeling like they are the only one in the world because no one is coming alongside.
No. You know, just this week, you know, it's my world to care for marriages, right? Just this week, 3 couples I know, tough stuff going on, you know, where the love's been lost and you know, they want to pull up. You know, sometimes it's an affair, sometimes it's just a cold distance that develops over the years.
Yeah, well, let's go to my family. 6 divorces in 18 months.
Wow. It's a tragedy all around us. And that love is lost. And we want to talk to you so clearly today about how you can move beyond the brokenness in a marriage. How you move beyond it. When the love is lost, stick with this. It'll make a difference for you and the people you care about in your world.
Yes.
So what happens if you get the bad news?
Okay, what bad news are you talking about?
The bad news is, "I don't love you anymore," or "I'm leaving." I mean, or even you get the big D, eh? "I want to divorce you. I want the divorce now." I mean, that's
I cannot even imagine, but I will tell you, I've actually dreamt this.
Wow.
And when I've dreamt it, Mark's telling me that he's leaving, and I am truly clinging to his leg, and he's dragging me across the floor, and I am begging him, and he's just like, "Get off me, and don't you get it?" And I'm devastated in a dream.
Well, that emotional cling, that pain that people go through is just phenomenal. And they're asking the question, is it really over? Does it have to be over?
Oh, we have Dr. David Hawkins, author of Love Lost, Living Beyond a Broken Marriage. And the thing that I love about you being here today, David, is the fact that you know what you're talking about. This is not academics.
Absolutely not academic. And what you're talking about, the clinging to, you know, I can remember distinctly the morning when I was sitting at the base of some steps and my former wife was at the top and I had packed my Toyota 4Runner and I was looking at her going like, I mean, does this have to happen? I mean, is this really necessary? Yeah. I mean, 'cause we had gone through, I had seen some things coming.
Right.
Okay, some things coming, but that doesn't mean it's over. And it doesn't mean, I mean, come on, we're just having some problems here.
And it's got to mess with your head because you're an expert. You've written on this and everything.
Well,
so
exactly.
I'm thinking if that was me,
I'm saying this thing is manageable. I got married for life.
Yeah.
For life. My mom and dad today have been married 65 years. I was a lifer. And after 28 years, my former wife decided that she was done. And it was fairly sudden and extremely catastrophic. And I'm at the base of the stairs at 7 o'clock in the morning. I had loaded the car with all of my things. I mean, what do you do? How do you?
Because you've been asked to leave?
I've been asked to leave. She said it has to happen. And I'm looking at her one last time, gonna get emotional. I don't know if I'll ever get over the trauma of looking up at her and saying, wow. I mean, come on, I'll walk across hot coals to redeem this. And she said, no, it has to happen. I'm moving in another direction. And I tell you what, for the next year and a half, I went to support groups, I went to counseling, I sought my pastor's coverage, I did everything humanly possible. Not to say that I want to be careful here, because there's not, there's two sides to every story, as a cliche,
Of course
she would give another picture to it. Yeah. But nonetheless, what you're talking about is absolutely devastating, and people who've been through it, I would say to you, they will never get over it. It
throws you into shock, though. You're into shock.
You're in shock. It's step number one, disbelief.
Okay. You're in shock, but I got to be honest with you too. Like you said, you saw signs,
yes,
but you still couldn't believe it. And I'm thinking of 3 different marriages where the women for years kept saying to their husband, I'm telling you something's got to change, or we're not going to keep in this marriage. I'm telling you. And then when they actually say, okay, it's over, the men are like, well, I didn't think she was serious.
Well, you may not believe this, but I think I'm an exception. But nonetheless, I mean, my former wife might say something else. But you are right. The majority of people, when we do the post-mortem, we can kind of see all the steps leading up. I call it a rope that becomes unraveled. Just strand by strand by strand. And certainly now that I've had 7 or 8 years to look back on it, I can see the strands unraveling. Wow. Nonetheless, at that time, at that phase of our lives,
you still thought there was a whole lot of rope left.
I thought there was a whole. It absolutely shocked me. I was speechless. I'll tell you a quick story. I invited a friend out for lunch when it was that day.
Right.
It was that day. That day, I called a friend. I said, "Man, I need you to meet me for lunch." He met me for lunch. We walked in and we sat down in the restaurant. I started crying. Couldn't talk. I couldn't. Yeah. He says, "Should we order something?" I said, "No, I can't talk. I can't talk." We went out, and for 1 hour, all I did was cry, and I cried for the next, I don't know, I want to say 6 to 9 months, and that's what's happening to people. Yeah. People don't realize, and there's people out there right now that are just they're absolutely suffering, and that's
so many people, David, that you and I counsel.
Yes.
Go to bed at night and they cry themselves to sleep. Men and women, they're in this shock, they're in this mess, they cry themselves to sleep. We are bound inextricably together. Yes. And so when you talk about ripping apart, that's what happens to us.
Is it only within the bonds of marriage? Because someone who's lived together for 8 years, I mean, doesn't it feel like the exact same rope being ripped apart?
Everybody who's in, we co-mingle our lives. I mean, think about how a relationship begins. You co-mingle, you share thoughts, you share ideas, you share a kiss, you share love, you share passion, and all of that becomes a rope. Yes. And to break it, it's not a scissors cut.
But you know what's interesting about that?
It's a ripping cut.
I use wire rather than, and it's so many different wires of, the emotional, the physical. And when it breaks, all these loose ends are sparking and frizzing and crackling. And it is all frayed and sparkling all around. And there's pain in this first segment on shock. Now we want to come back and we're going to talk about the next segment, all about the vulnerable stage. You know, you're in a mess, okay? Get on the internet. Contact us at Marriage Uncensored. We got people right now who can answer your questions. Mentors are waiting, right? And that's for you. And you know what? Right now, some of you know someone who's in a mess right like this. Get on the phone and call them right now to catch the next segment. We're right back.